Laurie. Laurie, Ingrid, Helen.
Who's online?
That's who we're talking.
Huh?
So we have Laurie, Ingrid, Helen, Deborah. Remote, we have Nick, myself, Sheila, Pauline, Harriet, Mike in the room. We have quorum.
And you do have several, yes.
And we have lots of guests. We have Parker here. And Sylvia. Hi, Sylvia. Nice to see you. Sylvia is a top student. She's here just auditing. She's working on a project with Miss Harriet. And Parker. Parker, would you introduce yourself?
Wait, sorry, was that directed at me? I didn't quite hear it. Okay, hold on. I will be there in just 2 minutes to introduce myself in person. Sorry.
Mine, you want me to put it down? Is that what's giving an echo?
That's the only thing I'm hearing.
I'll put it up higher.
Um, oh.
I'm washing my dishes. Bothers anyone?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm washing my dishes. If it bothers anyone, please let me know if I should turn off the video. I've already turned off the audio.
Everybody else has to go mute, who's in this room. So Sheila, you have to shut your mic off.
Yeah. Holly, I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear. Yeah.
There we go. Is that working? Okay. Welcome, everyone. Such an echo. Gonna just go through. Do you have your maybe?
No,
We're gonna start off with Harriet, just doing some meeting settings, expectations, success factors, meeting norms. I have some communications to share about project groups, Disability Pride Month lessons learned, East Branch Somerville Public Library event, accessible swings, scholarship updates. Then we're gonna move on to an update again with Harriet on communication, collaboration, and accessibility, accessible parking. Sheila's got an amazing report to talk to us about our budget, and updates on our expenses. We're gonna revisit a variance request from July. We didn't have time to talk about it in the July meeting, and then we're gonna talk about Miss Laurie Brandt has a couple of items that she wants to share with us, and we're expecting Mr. Counselor Willie Burnley to join us about some accessible zoning. Any questions?
Helen, did you hear us okay?
Laurie's got a thumbs down.
Laurie,
She's doing her dishes.
It sounds like Harriet, you sound like you're like far away and there's like a reverberation.
I think it's the mask, Harriet.
Oh, try it now. Try it now.
Hi, Helen.
Thank you. I can hear you now, but I want you to be safe also.
Now, let's see. Can you also hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
So, welcome, everybody. As a part of our usual way of caring for each other, let's do our absolute best. Number one, to say our names before we speak. And I forgot to do that. This is Harriet. And also do our best not to talk over one another and leave a little bit of space for each of us. And just in general, to pay as close attention as we can. Mike has volunteered to do our notes today, which is a gift. And just to mention briefly, it's our notes, and when they are approved, that actually is the legal and total validation of the work we do in the Disability Commission. So that may not have been apparent to some of us newer members, but it's a very important part of our function. Thanks very much. And Holly, I may have forgotten something, but I'm not sure. Go ahead. All right. And let's.
So, point of technicality, if somebody else in the room is speaking from their computer, then Holly, you need to turn your sound off.
Yeah, I went mute when she was speaking. I just
So
turned it
it's
back
more than
on.
a mute, you actually have to turn the speaker off on your computer. So you have to mute and then turn the speaker off,
Okay, good
which
advice.
I know is a lot to think about.
With 5 fingers working, got it. Okay. First up, we're gonna just talk briefly about project groups. We're a 13, 12-member body, public body. We get a lot of things done, not in these monthly meetings. We come to these meetings to deliberate, to discuss, to learn. And we bring updates to the table, like we've been working on swing projects, like we've been working on the scholarship funds, like Disability Pride Month. So I'm like to propose that we create 2 more projects. One is around legislative matters and the other one is around mental health. And legislative matters, when I call it that, is we need someone that has the pulse on what's going on at City Hall. I spend a lot of time looking at what's coming up on city council meetings, what also is coming up on the finance committee. And we need someone who is regularly looking at those information and looking at what's out there and keeping us on top of things so that if there's an opportunity or something that impacts people with disabilities that we may not be aware of, that we can have a voice and have someone there to represent us if we need to. I personally love going to city council on Thursday nights. I'm not joking. I love being there. I enjoy it. So I was hoping someone would like to join that group. We cannot have 6 people in a group because 7 is quorum and 6 is a circus. So I was thinking 3 or 4 max. And if anyone would like to let me know tonight or later in the week so we can get started looking at how we sort of manage that piece. The second group is going to be focused on mental health. And I've asked Harriet if she would lead that group. And I was hoping that our recently retired Mr. Shaps would join that piece.
I'd be interested as a mental, mentally ill person with PTSD. I might be interested in being on that committee.
Great.
But I'd have to know more about what it entails.
we just need Harriet or I to be part of those conversations. But-
Who's gonna be also, who's gonna lead legislative management?
Uh, yeah, we just need to have one, either Harriet or myself present or part of those groups. But those groups, however, the people join those groups and define those groups is what they'll work on and how they'll work.
I only ask because I'm the one who does this, so I was kind of looking to.
Then I think you should run with it if you would just allow Harriet to be part of it, just for that city piece. That would be wonderful. I think that that's something that you've, and also Laurie have talked about, and probably others. You know, mental health is a huge disability. It's a huge crisis that we're all going through right now. And having experts as members of our commission, I think is really priceless for us. So if anyone else would like to join, Mike, reach out to Mike. If anyone wants to work on the legislative piece, let me know. As far as our monthly meetings, we've talked 2 months ago, because we didn't meet last month, about moving it to a different time and to an earlier date. Oh, Deborah, I see your hands raised.
Hi, this is Deborah. We had also talked, Holly, about having an education group at some point, and I would be very interested in that.
Okay, then we have a third group.
Who said that? Who's gonna be head of education?
Deborah, and either myself or Harriet will help. That's wonderful, Deborah. Thank you. Anyone want to join Deborah? There'll be plenty of time. Oh, Ingrid, yay. Okay, great. Okay, so I'd like to propose that we change our meetings from Thursdays at 7 to Wednesdays at 6.
Tuesday at 7.
Yes, from Tuesdays at 7 to Wednesdays at 6.
Thursday? Great.
Sorry, I had surgery. My brain is not back yet. I don't even know how I'm standing here. I did some checking across many different people to see when is a better hour, or when you have better childcare, or that would allow you to physically be here. Because we obviously are the commission of all things accommodating, but the value of being together and sitting together and having communication that's live rather than some Brady Bunch pieces is really priceless, especially for someone like myself with a hearing loss. It's harder for me with Zoom and reading captions and such. So I'm gonna open it. I'm gonna first have that first motion. Oh, Deborah, you have a question?
No, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay, no worries. So I'm gonna make a motion that we change our meetings to Wednesdays from 6 to 8. We have a second. I'm gonna open it up for discussion, deliberation, if anyone has any comments or concerns, or if there's anyone who can't commit to that. Miss Pauline.
Do I have the floor or what?
Yes, ma'am, you do, Pauline.
For me, and it's just me, but I have a situation where I have to have dinner ready for my housemate at 6 o'clock. And it's gotta be right around that time. It would be inconvenient for me personally, and I don't wanna give up being able to come. You know, because, doing it with Zoom is not easy for me.
If we did it at 6:30, would that work?
It might work.
Anyone else have any? Harriet?
This is Harriet. My concern is that Like this Wednesday, there's a hearing or a special meeting, is that correct? I think, of the city council.
They're on Thursdays.
There are committees of the city council that meet other evenings. Yes.
On next meeting, let's say this week. So, I mean, I'm okay with changing it for sure. And then we'll just have to, I think, accommodate to one or another of us. Especially someone on legislative matters. Being present. Or partially so anyway. You know, I'm okay with Wednesday, it's just, I hope we can ride two horses at once.
I see what you mean, Harriet.
Yeah. But I really think if that's easier, especially for childcare, and we can get everybody here, let's go for it.
Go ahead, Ingrid.
Hi, Ingrid
Go ahead,
here.
Ingrid.
I
Hi,
would
Ingrid here.
absolutely like it to be Wednesday. I'll like rah for Wednesday and say I am not ambivalent about it. Tuesdays are like virtually impossible for me, childcare wise, and also Tuesdays like so momish, but it's like so early in the week and still feels mayhemy. So Tuesday's a little trickier, as where Wednesday feels more settled. Sorry if that's kooky, but I would much prefer Wednesday. So I'm waving the Wednesday flag.
Just discussion, if people at home can hear me. I would need to talk to Tufts about switching the date and time.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's a guarantee that this room is available at 6 or 6:30 days.
Okay.
So that may merit yet again another location change, and I just want to voice that.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna, I have a first, I'm gonna, call a vote. And, Laura, are you waving? You are on mute, my friend.
Yeah, I cannot make it because I have a support group on Wednesdays from 6 to 7 on Zoom. So I couldn't attend.
Can't do Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Laurie,
Oh, yeah, sorry, Lori.
I think it's really late, right?
yeah, 6 to 7 is her other commitment. It's every week. Okay,
What if we looked at it?
Yes,
Thursday? Are we tied to the Thursday?
Thursday I stepped away from because that is city council meetings.
If I may,
Please,
uh,
1 second, Harriet, I see you.
I know it'll be more discussion because the motion on the table is 6 to 8. So. If people don't, first of all, if people don't, if it doesn't vote, so what you're voting on is Wednesday 6 to 8. So I want to clarify that for the group. So. If that gets shot down, that means 6 to 8 is not going to be workable for the group, so you would have to put another motion forward.
Oh, yeah, understood.
Which you understood.
Yep.
If I may, and I understand work schedules, things like that. Was there any thought, or does it merit a discussion to think about? In the interest of quorum and scheduling. Starting at. Doing an earlier time on this. I'm not saying during the day, I'm just saying.
Earlier than 6 on a Wednesday, you mean?
Yeah.
I mean, the only earlier we could do is 5, but Pauline wouldn't be able to, and neither would Laurie. If we did, Tuesdays at 6:30. Harry, you have a,
What now? Wednesday, 7 to 9. Is that okay for anybody?
I think it's more the idea that 7 to 9 is what we want to kind of change.
Yeah, we
I-
wanted it to be
It's not necessarily
earlier.
the day.
or-
Brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to get it closer to 6.
So just voice again, this is Adrian. When I started this position with the city nearly 3 years ago, the starting times for these meetings were 6:30. And they went to 8 because at the time it was only 90 minutes and then there was a vote to make it 2 hours. Because
We moved
that's
it, yeah.
necessary for the work. So just a reminder that originally these meetings, and I think for a while, were at 6:30.
And if we did a Monday, does anyone have a conflict with a Monday at 6:30?
Ollie,
Yes?
I'm having difficulty. I've been putting my hand up. It's Helen Corrigan. I just wanted to suggest that the city council meets the second and fourth Thursdays. Couldn't we have it the first or the third?
Brilliant.
Would somebody repeat that? I can barely hear.
We could do the, Ingrid, does a Thursday work for you? Yes, okay, so we could do the first Thursday at 6:30.
So Pauline, did you hear the context that there was a concern about doing it on Thursdays because of city council meetings, but city council meets the second and fourth Thursday?
Is it, the city council, this is Harriet, the city council meets second and fourth Thursday, but we can have our meeting on the first Thursday of the month, the first or third. First or third, yeah. At 6:30, have we said maybe 6:30?
Is that,
That would, excuse me.
yep, Laurie?
I teach a class from 6 to 8 PM on Thursdays, but I won't block consensus, if it works for everyone.
But we can't exclude you.
I have one.
Yep,
Lori, but you have a 6 to 7 on Tuesday, a 6 to 7 or 8 on Wednesday, and a 6 to 8 on Thursday. I don't think we can ever accommodate, or
I
can
don't
we?
think she said anything about Tuesday. Did you?
Yeah, you had teaching today, didn't you?
Yeah, but I usually teach on Tuesdays. Is today Tuesday? I usually teach on Tuesdays from 6 to 8, but on the second Tuesday, I teach only from 6 to 7 so that I can attend this.
Can we turn her volume up? It's impossible.
okay, so the only time that you are not teaching, Laurie, is this-
Monday,
And Monday.
Oh, and Mondays.
The other alternative I can hear.
so
Um,
Fridays, not teaching Fridays.
Monday or Friday. Ingrid,
Friday at 8.
yeah, because city's closed early on Friday. So Ingrid, what happens on a Monday night for you?
Sorry. Ingrid, oh, it's just more of the same. It's just kid mayhem and very difficult. My babysitter moved too, so Mondays are just harder even than Tuesdays, just because of the mom thing and the beginning of the week thing. So Mondays and Tuesdays are, I mean, I can still be here. They're just in the background and I can't be there in person, but Wednesday, Thursday, I could be there in person, so.
All right, so I'm gonna withdraw my motion, go back to the drawing board, and you have a suggestion, Mike? Sure.
What about 6:30 on Tuesday? Change that. That may be-
Laurie, can we change the half hour and start at 6:30 instead of 7 on Tuesdays?
Right?
No,
No, but
because
it
she has
doesn't hinder
class.
Ingrid. She's in the
She
same
would just
position.
be there. She would be 30 minutes late, which
Lori here, I guess I could cancel my Tuesday class and on the second Tuesday of each month, or whatever.
Right, I'm gonna withdraw my motion and go back and do a little more polling. But okay. Moving right along. Thanks, everybody.
In the interim, while you're using your brain power, would you like me to check the other evenings with Tufts?
Oh, yes, please, thank you.
Prepare for that. when
Yes.
decisions are made.
I appreciate that, yes. Okay. Disability Pride Month. We had an amazing month. Do we have, okay, I see Crystal waiting for one more person. I am displaying, correct? So if I do that, can everybody see this?
One home,
How come?
if you're not sharing the screen.
Frank, what am I doing wrong? Share, here we go, share. Now, can everybody see this? Oh, everyone see this picture?
This is Crystal. I see the picture. It's great.
Absolutely. We have Nicole and her husband, and we have little Miss Carly sitting there. And next to her is, who is that? Oh, that's Ingrid's son, Alfie, and this young lady standing there talking with the other kids. And they were just hanging out at the library. We were reading the books all day. We read probably 6 or 8 different books. Pauline read 2 from Braille books, and the young lady here in pink came all the way from, I think it was Woburn or Waltham. She somehow found it online looking for something to celebrate Disability Pride and for her daughter. And they brought her to the Somerville Library to meet us or to enjoy the day. How do I go back to another picture? Let's see. No.
Excuse me, was that this is Harriet, was that the July 27th Family Day? Yeah.
Yes, it was. So here's the great Mike Schaap's flag. Came in a pinch. The flag raising was incredible. Thank you for being there, Kristen. Here is one of the pictures when Pauline was being recorded for the PSAs, the public service announcements. I hope everyone had a chance to watch those. Someone got a picture of me. Usually it's me taking pictures. Rashid did an excellent job reading one of the kids' books. They loved his animation. Here is another little girl who was there, and her nanny, and they spoke Spanish, and they were thrilled to get books in Spanish that we were reading that day. So I could show you pictures of the corner of our booth. Can someone confirm that you're seeing as I'm changing these? No, why not? If that's my screen. Ingrid, do you see a picture of side of a booth?
Ingrid here. I still see the first picture from the library, Holly. We haven't seen the changes. I haven't.
This is Crystal. I agree. Holly, can you try using the arrow keys while you're selecting that window and see if it will take you to the next photo? You could also try unsharing and sharing the next photo if you've got the next photo open in a separate window. But usually, yeah, there you go. Now we're seeing the booth underneath the
So
over.
there's the booth on the other side of the red line stop. No, we were not near the ice cream place. We were behind the train station, in front of the park. Seven Hills Park, yes. And And I believe that this person here who's painting hearts with the disability pride flag through them on kids' faces and hands is our own Deborah Haber. We had lots of volunteers that day. It was a beautiful weather. It was warm, but it was, we were very well received at the event. Let me just see if I can grab a few more pictures. Here we go. Am I sharing this one now, Crystal, or do I have to unshare?
You don't seem to be sharing right now.
You'd be amazed at how many people were overjoyed to use a Braille embosser to put their name in Braille on a cup, on a magic cup, thanks to Mike, that turned colors when you put liquid in it. And it was really, we had such great events.
Yeah, sure.
I have to show that one. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. How do I get back to that screen here?
This is Crystal. If you are in the Zoom program, do you see? There we go. There we go. Great
There
job.
we are. Thanks, Crystal.
Is it possible to increase the Zoom volume, or is that the maximum of your computer? This is Harriet.
I don't know. We need to have an owl in this room. We were supposed to have an owl this month, but we are owlless. Hopefully we will have an owl that will manage this. So we're all sitting here. For those who are remote, we are sitting at individual laptops. I'm sharing it onto the projector. But all the rest of us are mostly looking at just what's overhead here. So it's not picking all of us up. You can't see any of us. Let me see if I can show you one more picture of something different. Oh, Mike, another excellent reader and author. Ryan Poster, wait, admit. Okay, share. There we go. So people were just really happy. Going on from Disability Pride Month, the East Branch of the Somerville Library asked if we would repeat our Family Day event where we did all of the books. And we're gonna, initially we had said, okay, to December 7th, but I'm actually gonna be out of the country. And there's a few other of us that are also not gonna be around. So we're gonna change the dates. We're looking forward to another date, but we are gonna do another Family Day similar to what we did at the West Branch. Next up here is accessible swings. I'm just going to give 2 quick updates and then Crystal, do we have Brian? Hi, Brian. Waiting for Counselor Burnley. I don't see him here yet.
I didn't do the CCA update, but that's okay.
Accessible swings. So they have hired the new designer and I'll be sending them some more details, and I hope in the next couple of weeks there'll be some movement on that project, and then when we reconvene in October, I'll have good news to share about the swings. Although I did have a funny phone call the other day from Carly, swing girl. She called me and she wanted to know where I got this cool swing. And could I get another one for her school? 4 years old, ladies, 4 years old. Student scholarships. So we have sent out checks for 9 or 10 of our 12 candidates. The other 2 students, we are waiting for them to give us their paperwork. And that is it that I have for my updates here. Harriet, do you want to give a brief update on the Brailer?
Yeah.
Actually,
Sure. What's exciting about that is that it is here in the office, in the Tab building, and we're working on arranging a date with the software vendor So we can have a training, ideally in September, so we can use it for October. But we have to confer with you, Adrian, and others to make sure we can find a date that works for the vendor, for you, for us, right? But we're getting awfully close to being able to produce Braille.
What is the machine called?
Embosser.
Embosser.
Yeah.
Adrian,
Because it pushes the
I had
dots
sent
up.
a message out a couple hours ago. Do you know offhand how long the training is?
No, I like that. I'll ask him tomorrow. Yes,
So-
Colin.
There's a lot of feedback and didn't get much of what Harriet said, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Who's picking up Harriet's?
Oh, I am.
Should I try again?
You still got a lot of echo.
There we go. I shut off my mic.
Okay, that's
There you
better.
go.
Yeah. No, I was just saying that the Braille embosser is here in the tab office, in RSJ. And we're working on getting a date when the vendor and we can all get together for a training. A number of, obviously Adrian and I'm sure you could come too, Pauline, we'll see but we have to get a date and a time that works for everybody. And we're working on that. And I hope we'll get a date in September. That's all I said. That's it.
Okay, it's just that when you speak, there's a lot of feedback and I was losing.
No, understood. It's partly because we have several laptops and all of the laptops have to have their mics turned off and maybe even their speakers turned off. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Only one can be usable, if I understood correctly, so that we can hear our Zoom partners and our Zoom partners can hear us. Is that correct, technically?
Yeah,
More or less.
So if you turn yours off, Frank, then I will do mine. There we go. Okay. Am I mute? I can't tell. Nope. You can hear me?
Yeah.
The closed captions are blocking it. There we go. Okay. I don't see Willie. Crystal, do you mind reaching out to see if he's still joining us tonight? If you have a chance?
This is Crystal. I was just gonna ask if you wanted me to. I can do that.
I did just text him, but if you have the ability to reach him, that would be great. Accessible parking. I was hoping to start this after we talked about the zoning piece, but we can get started on that. Helen Corrigan and I met with traffic and parking. And traffic and parking. Helen, can you?
Susan,
Yes, Suzanne Renfret.
director, Suzanne, Rinfret.
Helen,
Yes.
hi. Do you want to share a little bit about the conversation that we had with Suzanne or?
Well, we did find out that there doesn't seem to be any way that the traffic and parking can ticket anybody in a parking space that's on private land. Unfortunately, it's a problem in outside of a lot of stores. But she did not have a solution for it.
And that's just because it.
She also said that traffic and parking are not the ones who make the decision where handicap spaces are going to be. I think she said it was the engineering department. Am I remembering that correctly, Holly?
Brian might be able to add to this conversation.
I'm not hearing you.
Brian,
Good evening. This is Brian Polstway.
Oh, okay, good, he's here.
Hi, Helen.
We can yell at him.
no, we were not going to yell at Brian.
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, I serve as the city's member on the Disability Commission, as well as the Director of Engineering. Excuse me. So the location of accessible parking spaces is a multi-party or multi-department responsibility. On one hand, I think the commission's aware of the HP spaces that can be requested by residents, and those go directly through the traffic commission, and the parking department does support those requests, as well as Adrian as the accessibility coordinator. The other point is, I would call them like public accessible spaces that are typically located in business districts on public ways. The city, both through the mobility division, as far as identifying recommended locations, and the engineering department in executing and constructing them, we do work together to identify those locations. The key element there, though, is that we usually are not doing that unless we have an active construction project in that location, and then we assess whether an accessible parking space would be justified. Usually that's because it's near a business district, because that's what we're focusing on for public accessible spaces, since there's already a process for residents. But one of the key things is that when we're making those accessible spaces, we are making them to be accessible and meet all the rules of accessibility, not simply a reserved space for people with disabilities. So we aren't putting in spaces unless we can construct them with the appropriate ramps, with the appropriate clearances to be accessible. And so that often limits our ability to construct them in certain areas just due to physical features and physical constraints.
So one thing that is apparent is that there is this magic 5% that I've read about of the total amount of spaces within an area. They should be 5% minimum spaces. And there's some of the documents that I shared for the meeting actually go and call out when there was an assessment of how we are as far as dispersing them. Pardon the paper shuffling. Oh, I know I have it here. Anything there, did I? If I change my screen, I will lose that. Of course.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm finally well after COVID
Oh my.
and pneumonia.
No.
Can we turn off a speaker or? I don't know.
Sorry.
My question is, there were, and I'm sure you've already answered this, but we're in a group now, so that may be helpful. There were a couple of parking spots that were in front of the Harvard Vanguard in Davis Square or the Atrius Health. And now the bike lane is there. it's not clear that the ride or other such vehicles or people dropping people off can pause there. And of course, I know that there are accessible spots in the garage, but personally, it's a lot harder for me to navigate from the garage to the second or third floor. So it's interesting. And I wonder if it's acceptable for a car to stop and unload somebody in the bike lane.
So again, this is Brian Postaway. And I don't have the plans nor the parking regulations in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to provide a complete answer to this. My recollection is that the area in front of the Harvard Vanguard is not a bike lane. It is a bus lane. It is a bus lane that is dedicated for also use by bikes. What I don't recall is whether or not that's time limited or if that's 24/7. Generally, taxis and the ride are allowed to receive and discharge passengers in the bus lane, but they or may not park there.
Of course.
So they can't wait for a passenger there. They have to, but they can receive a passenger there. And they have to move when a bus is coming, as soon as reasonable. If there's an active loading and unloading, of course, the bus will go around. But yes, that is my understanding of that area. But I would defer to the parking department and the actual regulations that they have in place at that location.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Harriet, and thank you, Brian. We could talk for years about parking. I just want to show one last chart. There were other documents that were shared with the meeting materials, but in February of 2022, oh, wait a minute, let me go back a second. In front of Harvard Vanguard, Brian, we were talking, those sticks that are monitoring cars that are sitting in like a bus lane that shouldn't be there are, if someone were to pull over to, that was the ride, or that had a handicap placard and was picking someone up, is there the potential that they could get marked as, that ticket stick isn't going to be able to know that it's the ride or the bus or an accessible handicap pickup? It's just going to see there's someone sitting in the bike lane, the bus lane, correct?
Yeah, so there is a 5-minute window on those. And so that if you're exceeding that 5-minute window, then yes, you will get a ticket.
Okay.
Could the MBTA or green and yellow taxi get that exempted? Probably. I don't really know how the appeals work. But a private vehicle pulling in there, dropping somebody off, they would probably get a ticket. And I would be even less convinced that they would be able to get an appeal successfully.
So in February of 2022, we hired Nelson Nygaard and collected some data of the city's neighborhood districts and on-street parking spots and accessible spots. And if you look at, let's see, Porter, the highest space. So Magoon and Winter Hill and Penn Hills had at the time 5,529 on-street parking spots. And of that, only 71 were accessible. East Somerville had 3,094 parking spots and 26 were accessible. Hillside and Teal had 2,556 parking spots and 6 were accessible. And I'm not gonna read all these numbers. Although I question, it says Innerbelt had 185 spots, 0 accessible spots. And Brick Bottom, 236 spots, 0 accessible spots. But the overall total is, and obviously this is gonna change from 2022, but this was the most recent that I could find. There were 25,102 on-street parking spots in the city, and only 207 were accessible.
What's the total?
25,000 and how much?
102,
But they're only, what's the total of the,
207
so more like,
207 are,
accessible. So no one needs to defend this or discuss this. I'm not bringing this up in a negative way. I'm bringing this up because there's a lot of more information and discovery that we need to, in my opinion, look at as a commission when it comes to parking. And I know that parking is something that's very important to several of us. And Helen, earlier, you were here earlier, we were talking about making groups, one for legislative matters, one on mental health. I'd like to propose that we have a third one that focuses on parking. And I'm hoping you'll help me with that, Helen. And I'm hoping that 1 or 2 other people would volunteer to also get a Sheila as a yes. So we can tackle this a little bit more. And again, this changes because what
Holly, I would like to help you with that. I have some questions to ask you about it. I don't know if this is the appropriate time.
we can
because
talk
I'm
about that
not
after.
On the agenda.
Yeah, if we can talk about that later, that would be great.
I also would like to ask Brian something.
Sure, and then I'm gonna turn
let's
us
go-
back
we go with
over
Brian
to
first.
another item. But please go ahead.
Obviously, the Harvard Vanguard situation is important to me. Obviously, it is to Harriet too, and I'm sure there are other people. When I look at where the bus line starts, it seems to me it's really long. And I would wonder if Brian could perhaps take a look at it and find out if the bus lane could be a little shorter. Maybe I'm way off, but I've seen much shorter bus lanes. But as far as what you brought up, Holly, I would like very much to get involved in the legislative part of your committee. And I was going to ask you, would it be necessary to go to City Hall, or could it be just watching them?
It'll be whatever the group decides.
Okay,
Just
because
someone,
it's difficult for me to get there.
Yep.
But we can talk about that after the meeting, because I know, as I said, I know you have a lot going on tonight, as always.
I know you said you can't say anything about the 25,000 and the 207 spots, but I would like to personally say that that's awful. So I'm just putting that out there that I think it's awful.
I don't think anyone in this.
I know,
room or
you just
city
couldn't
would-
say it,
wouldn't
so I'm
agree, yeah.
To be truthful, there's no problem anywhere.
The other thing I discovered is a lot of our accessible spots are limited to residents because they're in neighborhoods that have resident-only parking. So if you're a visitor to the community and you're looking for an accessible spot, and we're counting these 207 from 2 years ago, the percentage of those that are earmarked for a resident with a sticker and a handicap placard reduces it much more. Okay, so Councilor Burnley, thank you for joining us tonight. I know you wanted to bring a topic to our attention. Several of us have been on a few hearings, and what time is it? It is 8:06. How about the next 15 minutes? To have the floor and talk about
Well, I was called into this meeting at one point through the chair.
Yes, hi. Oh, I think you ended up getting muted.
Oh no, I was waiting to be prompted to say something. Thank you.
You have the
You have
floor.
the floor, Willie, all you. Share with us what you're working on or what you're thinking of. Um,
Okay, thank you and apologies for being late. I was in a council meeting and then I had to walk somewhere and now I'm in a home that is not my own. But um yes, exactly, Ingrid. That is exactly the right reaction to that statement. I just want to bring to the attention of this body that I did put forward an order from the council to staff to work together on trying to look at our zoning across the city and figure out how we can create more accessible zoning, particularly for housing improvements, making housing more accessible. And that is partially as a result of some of the latest initiatives that have been going through the Zoning Board of Appeals, where quite frankly, I've seen what I think is counterproductive to the goals of this city in terms of providing more accessible housing to meeting our goals for aging in place. Some restrictions that just make it harder for homeowners to actually build a city that matches our values and can meet the needs of our residents. So I'm hoping to both look at how specifically to make sure that we can change our zoning so that we can add things like elevators to homes more easily, but more broadly, how we can get at the issue of accessibility from a zoning standpoint. So just wanted to let everybody know, and if people have specific examples of how we can do that, I'd be more than happy to hear that so that I can just zero in on it as specifically as possible. So thank you.
Counselor, can I ask you a quick question?
Please.
My name is Michael Shaps. I'm taking notes and I don't want to put words in your mouth. You said that you think that not having housing and aging in place and housing that can meet the needs of their residents is, what word did you use?
Counterproductive is the word I use.
Thank you so much.
Counter to the values of the city, or what our values are stated to be. That is me being very diplomatic.
I'm gonna write
And
that.
that's all I'll say on that. Thank you.
Crystal, would you like to add? I know you've been working through the city on a project for your home.
For how long? Harriet.
So this is Crystal.
Louder.
Sorry, this is Crystal. Is this better? Okay, so for the context of folks who might not be aware, we have been working with an architect and city staff and a lawyer for 3 years to design a renovation for our 2-family home to be able to have an elevator on it. And we are at the point in the process where we submitted our paperwork and our proposal and have been working through the stages of trying to get a permit for the renovation. And one of the steps is to go before the Zoning Board of Appeals, because in order to do this specific project in this tight space that we are in, the only place where the shaft of an elevator can be located on this house is such that it would, when it reaches the 3rd floor of the house, because it's a half story, the elevator would only have 2.5 feet tall house to open the doors onto. Does that make sense? So like reaching the 3rd floor, obviously you want it to reach a place in the house where the door can open onto the 3rd floor and a wheelchair user can enter the 3rd floor of the house. So we have been working on this plan to increase the height of the house, or the stories of the house, to be a full 3rd floor height so that the elevator doors can open. And that requires a variance before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They're the entity of the city that can give permission for that sort of thing. And in the neighborhood meetings about this project, we have been talking with our neighbors for longer than we've been designing this project, but we've been actively talking with our neighbors for 3 years, preparing them for this, because there have been a lot of renovation projects in our neighborhood and people do not enjoy living through construction in the neighborhood. And we wanted to take some of the lessons learned and also like give and receive some grace from our neighbors and with our neighbors for, you know, this is going to be inconvenient for everyone in different ways. But the goal is to have a 2-family house that has wheelchair accessibility for members of my household and my family members. We have experienced some sudden pushback from the abutters that we had not anticipated, or even like, it was a shock. And they have been talking to us through their lawyer, and this has been a lot more expensive to even design than we anticipated. I think the most recent estimate is that it has cost $60,000 to reach this point, and we still don't have a permit. And 12,000 of that was in the past month.
12,000 was what? Excuse me?
In the past
Past
month,
month.
between the lawyer and the architect and the structural engineer, trying to redesign the project based on the feedback of these neighbors that suddenly do not want us to do it or do not want to do it this way. It has been very challenging. And I have asked for help because I feel like it should be the case that residents, and it shouldn't matter how long we have lived in Somerville, but we have lived in Somerville for 19 years. I feel like it should be the case that residents of Somerville should be able to, assuming the site can enable an elevator, should be able to, at their own expense, add an elevator to their building for increased accessibility. This is a huge expense. We are proposing to go into greater amounts of debt, as you might imagine. But it is important to us, if possible, to stay here and to live here with our family. And so we have been going through this process, and we have not been able to reach a satisfactory conclusion thus far. I really appreciate the members of this commission who have attended some of the hearings at the Zoning Board of Appeals and who have written letters. I have not wanted to trouble everyone with what feels like a very private situation in some ways, but now it is very public. And it has been very distressing, and we may have to sell the house and leave Somerville. So I would like the city to make it possible for people to have this. I think it's important.
Thank you, Crystal. I wholeheartedly agree. I also had to add an elevator to my home, for my child. And that was a lot of going through the zoning. And it was an outdoor elevator. It wasn't even, but it did have the option for any neighbors to just to say, no, I don't want you to build your house a certain way. Does anyone else have any feedback?
Question.
Sheila.
The abutters objection, is that because you needed to go up on the outside of the building to get to the elevation to the 3rd floor?
If I understood the question, it was about the height change. Is that correct?
Yeah, the height change.
Yeah. Is that it?
So the original proposal that we sent to the city in December last year was to increase the it's still a half story because of how stories work. But the original proposal was to increase the house a half story, which was originally envisioned to be an 8-foot change. Now we have whittled it down to a 4-foot change in the height of the house, and that is still unacceptable to my neighbors.
And that 4 feet is the mechanical housing that makes the elevator go up.
Yes, sorry, this is
But
Crystal,
your
that is
zoning-
correct.
Your zoning is for a 2-story building where you're versus a 3-story. Is that
The,
what?
the zoning for this particular location is in neighborhood residential, and the particular type of house, based on how the zoning works, it is building type based, and it is allowed to be 2.5 stories, and it is currently 2.5 stories high. And we have asked that it be allowed to be 3 stories high, so that it can be tall enough for the elevator doors to open onto a full story, and so that the mechanicals of the elevator can be like the way that the hoistway works is the mechanicals are on top of the type of elevator that works in this situation.
And Crystal, is there such a thing as 3.5-story homes or 4-story home? There are different zoning for houses, no?
The zoning in Somerville is, sorry, this is Crystal. The zoning in Somerville is both building type based and also like neighborhood designation. So we are within the neighborhood residential zoning area, and we are a detached type of house. And so that is allowed within neighborhood residential to be 2.5 stories high. There are other types of zoning in terms of the building type, if the building type were to change, or in terms of the zoning type, if the zoning type were to change, that would enable taller buildings. But the reason why we are asking for a variance from the city, from the Zoning Board of Appeals, is because it is zoned as neighborhood residential, which, because of the building type, limits it to 2.5 stories. Did that make sense?
Yeah,
See what I missed the objection.
they don't want it. They have to go up.
Aesthetically, or what's the, sorry. Crystal, sorry. Maybe you said or I misheard, I don't know. The neighbor's objection is aesthetics, so they don't want the construction, or what is it?
This is Crystal.
Yeah, no, I have to. 1 second.
Is this okay? Okay. This is Crystal. I would hesitate to characterize what the neighbor's actual objection is. I am not sure that we have understood it, because every time we try to address it, the objection changes. So does that make sense? I can't tell you what their concern is, because it keeps moving.
But they have the power
Yes.
to say that they object to the plan as it is at the moment.
Jesse, do you understand more? I see you on camera.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't know all the details of your story, but I would just like to kind of I think this conversation, I think it's important to maybe for this commission to just get a general, have like a general teach-in or something about zoning. Because, so we overhauled the zoning a few years ago. And when we did that, everything wasn't perfect. And, just so people understand, zoning is sort of it controls everything. It controls what you can put where, it controls everything. And I'll give you an example of how like the zoning could be flawed. But, I want to say this though, but it was just redone a few years ago. And the thought process at this point is anything that's a variation from the zoning has to go before the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Unless we change it first, which is what Willie's talking about, and I'm happy to support. Because I'll give you an example of something different. Like the Winter Hill Brewery, they wanted to put an awning on the side of their building so that people could be shaded on the deck. The zoning doesn't even understand that type of awning. They only know awning as a little thing in the front, right? So I'm just trying to give an example of how, so now a small business can't have an awning without jumping through, without, basically getting a variance. And it seems like the easiest thing to do. So that, that example applied here is that I'm sure there are a million different things, like I think that, it's worth going through the zoning and figuring out based on what the zoning allows for dimension wise and everything, and factoring in accessibility. In this case, first of all, I don't think the ZBA can approve it regardless of what the neighbors are saying, as far as I know. What I think is important to note is that the reason why it's even before the ZBA to this degree is that neighborhood residential, again, is very stringent in what, the height of the building. So they're needing to go higher, so therefore they're needing approval from the ZBA. That's really as clean and simple as it gets in a way, but then it sounds like, and again, I haven't been watching the meetings, I really want to speak on a specific case, but that's kind of at the crux of the matter. I don't think that the neighbors can stop the ZBA from voting to approve. And maybe Willie, maybe you can like correct me. I haven't been.
Really had to jump off.
Okay. Well,
have-
yeah, so
They have managed to not get it to be approved. It is not approved.
Right,
How many times? This is here.
right, and I'm not sure what that's about, if maybe, is it gonna go to a lawsuit if they do approve anyway, so then it will be held up, or so they're trying to come to an agreement? I haven't been up on every detail of the case, Crystal, but I feel for your case. I understand. I've seen a lot of support emails coming in. I know the general basics of it. And I think it just, again, I'll stop talking, but I think it just speaks to the larger issue of, based on like Crystal said, that we have a building type and and then like there's certain dimensions that are allowed. And I'm sure there's other instances where, those dimensions are preventing, possibly even conflicting with, ADA accessibility. So zoning is a beast. It's something that, I hear you guys already talking about forming subcommittees for legislative matters and stuff. But yeah, zoning is something you might want to focus on. I'm not sure what's going to happen with this case here, but Willie's talking about trying to figure out how we can dig into the zoning, or at least get staff to do it, because we're not engineers. We rely on the city staff. But there are also people in the community who are great at helping with that stuff.
And Councilor Klingon,
Yeah.
it would start with a board order. It would get reviewed under legislative matters and discussed on how they would put through a proposal of how to modify the zoning for cases like this. Would that be a super high level 101 process? That will take a lot longer than
So that's even just a hard one to answer it, because it just really depends on what the overall zoning, like, yes, a council could put in a simple order asking about, it could sit for years, just so you know, there's like 3 or 4 big things that are in, that the staff are looking at zoning. In my opinion, you're better served almost, there are individuals out there, groups that are really good at figuring out zoning, and
Really hard to
it's
hear.
it's based on, sorry, Harriet, it's based on, an engineer's assessment of what the dimensions are, and these situations. But a lot of times it's going to be case by case basis, similar to Crystal's, as they come up. I don't know that you could holistically address the deficiencies in the zoning regarding accessibility, but I'm sure there's little things here and there that I'm sure that could be picked up on that could prevent something like this from happening.
Do we even know how many private homes in the city have elevators outside or inside?
No, I don't know that, but
Crystal, I see.
But this isn't a question of having an elevator in the home. This is a question of height.
It was just
Yeah, so
curious how many residents have successfully added
Yeah.
elevators within the housing, and what our housing is that is been made accessible by the owners?
So this is Crystal. I have requested that data set from what used to be called Resistat, and we're talking about how to acquire that data set because the data exists, but not all in one document. I've been working on that question for my class, actually. I and my friend who is a real estate agent in Somerville, who has worked on accessibility issues and housing issues on Somerville boards, we are only aware of one house in Somerville that has had an elevator added in the past decade. I am aware of 4 in the Porter Square area on the Cambridge side of the city line that have had it added in the past, well, since the beginning of the pandemic, so in the past 4 years. But only one in the past decade in Somerville that I'm aware of, but obviously our knowledge is incomplete, hence my asking for the data set. So I hope to know more information in the future. To the item that Jesse was saying a moment ago, sorry, Councillor Klingon, a moment ago about the general concern of how to address this for more than just an individual case, because I do think this is a systemic issue to be solved for more than just my family, because no family will be here forever or exist forever. I have talked with a few people about a few possible solutions. I believe that the item elevator in terms of a building type, building property type, or an item that could be added to a building, there's not a lot of reference to it in the zoning. So that could be clarified. The particular situation of Somerville having a lot of residences that have half stories as their top floor is something that I would strongly encourage the city to address when trying to address this in general, because it is not a specific situation to my one house. I think it would also be valuable to figure out ways of incentivizing people who are trying to do this. We, when embarking upon this project, did not expect that the planning stage would cost so much, as you might imagine. But it is a situation that is challenging to be completely forthright about in a public and publicly recorded hearing, because there are people in my household who do not wish to be public about being disabled. But certainly there is a lot of information available, some of which we would have preferred not to reveal if one were to review the minutes or the videos of the most recent ZBA hearings. And we have not been able to figure out a satisfactory resolution to this situation thus far for our family. But I think that Somerville in general can figure out a way to address this. It seems like it should be, as Willie said earlier, a thing that is in alignment, strong alignment with our goals and values for the city.
Thank you, Crystal. Harriet, you have been very patient.
No, but we need to look at the time. Oops. We got echo. Okay. No, I just wanted to say, I've been in Somerville since 1983. And I remember that it was a lovely woman who did some great work for the city named Marie Gillis. I don't know if she was a council person or not. But it was a very big deal to give Harvard Vanguard permission to build to 4 stories. Okay? But not even a private resident, right? You know, it was a commercial district. So
Inside of Davis.
Yep. And that building was constructed, to my knowledge, in 88, 89. Now, here's the thing I can't get. I am planning now to do research on the Cambridge Commission for Persons with Disabilities and their experience, because we know someone personally on Orchard Street.
Hold on, I don't.
Anyway, I'll do some research. Finished. So.
Something.
Zoom dropped.
Or is it?
Can people hear me?
Yeah.
No, can people on the line hear us?
Well, they can, my computer's working.
Okay. So are we running the meeting from you?
Yes,
Cool.
I'm in charge now.
Okay. Excellent.
Speaking of which, I don't know the answer to this. Am I allowed to like, can I just go to the neighbor and ask him what's up?
You can do anything you want. You're a
Wait,
citizen.
What question are we answering?
Is it like inappropriate for someone on the council to ask the neighbor what's happening?
I can tell you that I did not identify them in here because they did not put their last name up there, so I'm not sure I.
No, I just, it would, like, if
Oh,
talking to like Crystal, if I could learn more and then maybe talk to your neighbor and see what's, I'm getting a full picture.
So this is Crystal. Part of the challenging situation here is that the neighbor did not communicate any of their concerns before bringing a lawyer to the hearings. And so now I am constrained by, they brought a lawyer, we had to hire a lawyer, we had to have the lawyers talk to each other, which is why the past month has been so expensive. That is how I am constrained. I don't know if you would be able to help or if you might, like, I don't know. Because
The idea of pitching is just as a member of the council, just being like, hey, wanted to get a bit of clarity on what the issues are and just have peaceful talk and see what information I can get.
so we are residents first. And it's important that we, you know, if I go to city council and I get asked to comment on something, I always talk about being a resident. And then I identify as a member of the commission and I'm the chair, but I'm speaking as a resident, unless we voted on something. You're a resident. Everything we do is public. Anyone who is listening today or writing about it, it's all free speech. So, and all of the information about all of those hearings is minutes and such.
Recordings as
I
well.
don't know if it would benefit Crystal in this situation to do that, but there's nothing that you're not breaking any laws, but I know what you want to do is in good faith to understand a little bit better. So,
Crystal, if you think it would help, I'm here to help, but if not, I understand.
Holly, can I just say something on that?
yes.
I'm not a lawyer either, but anyway, Harriet, I'm sorry, everybody, this is Counselor Jesse Klingon speaking. I'll try to speak up. Yeah, I know, I think that's a really nice sentiment. I think that since there's lawyers involved, that's probably, I don't think that's probably not a good idea, just because, like Crystal said, they may say, someone's trying to intimidate them. I mean, ultimately, they're not the decision maker. Like, ultimately, I mean, you could write a letter to the ZBA supporting Crystal. I think that would be helpful. But I know what you're saying. It's just like, what's the deal? But it sounds like they're, they lawyered up pretty quick, so it doesn't sound like they're interested in comments or anything.
What they're doing.
What if I wear?
No. So
I just have,
the point of this conversation was to see how we can support Willie. And taking it from that point and learning from what Crystal's been experiencing. I apologize, Harriet, I cannot interrupt you.
no, it's okay. I wanted to ask you, Counselor Kling, the following. When people come to give their statements in a zoning board meeting, appeal meeting, is that irrelevant to the zoning board members?
I suppose that's up to them. I wouldn't say that it's irrelevant. But I mean, it's really up to them. They have to interpret the situation, they, interpret whether or not, the zoning, there should be, like an exemption granted essentially outside of what the zoning allows. And yeah, I mean, I think they consider everything. So I would hope so. I mean, if they're, that's the idea behind the appeal. But I guess, it's up to the person because somebody could just stringently say, oh, no, zoning's this, and until they change it, this is the way I'm gonna go. So to answer your question, it really just depends on the individual on the zoning board of appeals, but I think they're all pretty reasonable people, and I think that they're, my opinion is that they're all, reasonable people and appreciate the feedback and take everything into consideration.
This is Harriet. I just would like to say the following. I sat through the entire last meeting, a good 2 hours of which was devoted to Crystal's house. And there were probably some 30 or 40 people who gave statements. And I would say the vast majority were very positive about the variance. And only one person of the 5 people on the board chose to abstain. And it just shocked me. I mean, it really shocked me. In other words, public opinion or view or their neighbors or anybody else, didn't matter. The neighbors who were fine with it. I mean, that's I just, when you make it litigious, it just isn't going to get resolved right, I think. Anyway, thank you.
I mean, I would just ask, I'm sorry to interrupt, this is Counselor Jesse Kling, I would just ask Crystal, so is the idea that the next ZBA meeting, they'll make a decision? Is that where things are at?
I honestly don't know because, sorry, this is Crystal. This will be our 3rd ZBA hearing. Also, I'm really sorry, Sheila has been trying to like raise a hand. I'm really sorry. And Ingrid, but like, this will be our 3rd ZBA hearing. At the last ZBA hearing, there were 4 voting members present and only one said that they were planning to vote for the project because of the neighbors' concerns and because of the, I'm not sure what else was going into their thinking, but certainly the chair of the ZBA said that we should like talk more between the lawyers and figure this out. I am not convinced that we have been able to do that thus far. The next week will be a wild ride. And I really don't know what will happen with my specific case. I think that this is a thing that Somerville in general would do well to figure out. And maybe that is the commission hosting some focus group discussions and then formulating proposals for ways that might help address this kind of problem as opposed to the specific situation. But this kind of problem needs a solution, particularly as Somerville is becoming increasingly aware of aging in place in ways that in the past Somerville has been less necessarily concerned with. I hope that there might be sufficient coalition to do something about this problem and solve it for future situations.
Thank you, Crystal.
Okay. Ingrid.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Ingrid here. Crystal, I just want to thank you for sharing, and I am so sorry. This should not really be happening to your family. And I think for a need like this and for disability, I think beyond even just the classification of that, it's nobody's business. And I'm really sorry that this whole experience has caused you to do that. And I think that Somerville should try better. And I get, it always seems to come down to the zoning and the engineers. It seems like every time there's a delay or a problem, we're talking about somebody somewhere down the line, an engineer or something, but, or I don't know, this just should not be happening, and I get that somebody has a complaint, but it seems like he is a small piece of rice in a big sea, and I am so sorry that this is happening to you, and thank you for sharing, and I just want to honor that this is so hard, so that's all, thank you.
Okay, everyone, I'm gonna have. Oh, hi, Laurie.
Hi, it's Lori here, and I was also going to say the same thing, that I just want to acknowledge, Crystal, how frustrating and exhausting and maddening this must be, because you're just looking for equity and quality of life and caring for each other. Thank you.
Deborah.
I don't see you, Deborah.
Hi, this is Deborah. I was just wondering if maybe it would be helpful to have a city council resolution saying, whereas Somerville is dedicated to equity for accessibility for all of its residents, when zoning variances arise that are specific to ADA compliance and accessibility needs, we advise extra consideration and lenience.
Here,
We
Harriet.
have lost all three of our counselors that have joined us tonight, but we will have that in our minutes, and we will, I will follow up on that. That was very well said, Deborah, thank you. Something in the chat.
I think that's old stuff.
Old stuff, okay. Thanks, Crystal. We're gonna have, shift our gears towards the treasurer, and, Sheila has gone through and compared. I'm gonna set this up or hand it over. Okay, has gone through and compared our 2 years of fiscal expenses and averaged out what our monthly income is from our accessible parking fine funds. And has prepared a presentation to sort of give us a guide of answering that question. Well, how much is reasonable for us to be spending? What do we think we should always have in the account that's earning interest, et cetera? So
Instead of writing everything down, can I say refer to the report?
and it'll be a transcript from this.
A transcript and then the recording.
Refer
Yeah,
to
so we'll have-
report.
No. I didn't take copies, but oh. We don't have an owl, we are improvising. So we are going to. Is that super awesome?
But first, quickly, I can give you the, because we didn't meet in August, we have just a month.
July and, school of one for August is not complete yet. So in July, just quickly, income, fees and fines was $10,760 with interest earned $1,161.33. At the end of that month, July, which is first month of the fiscal 25 year, the balance of bank balance was $287,505.65. We don't have the revenue yet for August. They haven't just gotten into the system yet.
Oh,
so- Sorry. I guess everybody.
Yeah, could hear me okay. So can everybody at home hear me now? Okay, I just gave the numbers for the July income.
And August, we don't have the income, but we just have the expenses. So we see our scholarships are getting paid. We've already cleared 8 of them, it looks like, and there's some more in process. A lot of the disability awareness month items are being paid. But we also, what we really want to look at is, we talked a couple of times already about creating a financial plan for fiscal 25. So fiscal 25 began in July 1st to June 30th is fiscal 25. So I took a lot of the data from the last 3 fiscal years, which is as long as we've had expenses. It's when we started expending money from the commission's fund.
Yeah, you try to keep your dogs up a little bit.
Do I put this will, that won't help her though, right? Okay, I'll just sit closer. So for fiscal 25, we take the beginning balance of our bank balance from June 30th of 24. So that's the end of the close of the year of fiscal 24. And in our bank balance was $266,581.21. I won't go through all of this line by line because you can't see it. So I'm just going to give you a rundown on it. So then we looked at estimated income for fiscal 25. And I took the last fiscal years, the last 2 fiscal years, and which were pretty much similar and steady income. We have both fines and fees. We had an average of about $115,690 per year. So that's the estimate we will use for going into fiscal 25. And interest earned in the amount, the average was $12,508.65. So our total estimated revenue, and again, it could be higher, it could be lower, it depends on the amount of violations and the interest rates and everything else that goes along with it. But the estimate we would use going into 25 is $128,198.65. So what I took was for estimated expenses for FY 25 is a combination of 2 things. Some of the things that we already authorized and we know that we are probably going to expend, and a few estimates for other projects that we will probably take part in FY 25. So it's scholarships for the class of 2024. We know that we voted to approve $66,000, and those are in process of being paid this fiscal year. We had authorized about $10,000 for swings. Books and educational material, we had authorized $10,000 in expenditures. And for transportation, and that's transportation to our meetings for residents with disabilities that otherwise could not get to our meetings. And that's $500 that we authorized. Disability Pride events. So for the current year where this past July, we had authorized $5,000 and we spent about half of that already. And the rest is still in process. So I have that in fiscal 25 because that's when the payments would be made. I also estimated another $5,000 for Disability Pride Month next year, even though it will fall in the next fiscal year. Our hope is that the lessons we learned from this year, we will try to do those purchases earlier. So we have, a little bit of time to go through the process a little bit more smoothly next time. And Red Sox Disability Pride game, I estimated $16,000 last year's game. And of course we did have, 98 people. So it was a lot.
This is Crystal. I think we are we are hitting the limitation of the tab building Wi-Fi and we no longer hear the report. I think that the Wi-Fi has frozen on the laptop that was transmitting information. Nick, can you unmute yourself?
Right there. Yeah. Okay.
So I think we got you through to Red Sox Disability Prize 2025.
Okay, and we allotted 16,000 for that event. So if you look at the amount we started out with at the beginning of the fiscal year, it's just over $266,000. We're estimating additional income throughout the fiscal year, and that comes in month by month, of about $128,000. With expenditures, and we will have most likely more expenditures, but what we know we're going to have is what we counted here with 112,500. So we are bringing in more in estimated revenue than we have planned to expend. So right now we would cover all our expenses with our generated revenue without dipping into the beginning balance of the 266, which we can do because it's a healthy reserve. But so if we took that beginning balance, our estimated income coming in, and the estimated expenses we have, we would still end with a balance of $282,000. So I know that we'll be discussing more and more initiatives and things that we'll spend on, but these are just the ones we already either authorized or know that we're going to want to spend that money. So one of the things that we want to look at is whether we want to have an estimated amount of money, for instance, that bank balance shouldn't fall below, because part of the revenue that we're generating is the interest earned on those revenues. So, you know, we could. And again, this budget is not required. It's not like the city budget where you're tied to anything in here. These are just guidelines and estimates. And it's a way for us to, as we go along month to month, for instance, to track how much we allotted for swings and how much we spent, so that we can know, you know, how much room we have to expend on other items. And as we go along, new initiatives will come along and other kinds of expenses. But it's a guide to just know month to month where we are.
Sheila took a lot of time to gather all of that information, all of those fines, all the interest, tracking all the different invoices and the projects. You should see, oh, she has it here.
Oh, all kinds of color coding.
Multicolored,
Thank you, Sheila.
basically what she's gone and done is, if we were to fund the scholarships, swings, books, Disability Pride, and Red Sox Disability Pride event in this current fiscal year, we would still be under what we've been earning month to month, and we wouldn't even be touching that 266,000 that's been in our account earning interest.
Right.
What I think we should do is work towards, we certainly can spend from that 266 balance, but I don't feel that we should go below 150 sitting in reserve and earning interest. Because as handicap spots get removed or parking gets removed, there are less spots to be ticketed, and our income will at some point go down. Which brings us back to parking and ticketing people who are sitting in Dunkin' Donuts as I watched, in the 2 handicap spots and the access aisle in between. There was a car park. 5 minutes, thank you. Just in their cars when the entire lot was open spaces for cars, but they decided that's where they wanted to park. So I'm gonna turn us over to Laurie. Laurie wanted to share some information with us.
Thank you.
Sorry,
Looks like
this is Crystal, just really quickly, because I think the Wi-Fi problem is a timer
volume
problem
down?
with the Wi-Fi.
Oh.
I just want to make sure that we have at least one more laptop that's still active on the Wi-Fi in case Nick loses the Wi-Fi next.
Got one, we're going one by one, yes. Thank you.
Okay, hi, Lori here. So two things. I saw a wonderful adaptation in a library in Virginia, and it wasn't exactly for people with disabilities, but it was so closely related. It's for parents with toddlers who are trying to work at the computer, and instead of having the toddler on your lap, you know, printing on the computer, or the kid running wild around the library, there's this little corral made of plywood that the kid can sit in, sort of like a crib, a playpen, but it's, you know, it's got sloping sides so that the kids can see the parent and the parent can see the kid, and there's like toys in the corral. Anyhow, it was so brilliant that I don't know how it could be redesigned or used for disabled people, but that was the first thing. Okay, and the second thing is when I was traveling from Vermont to New Hampshire to Massachusetts, I stopped at a New Hampshire Welcome Center, and the bathroom wasn't accessible. I use a wheelchair part-time, and so I was able to stand up and use the sink and the soap, but someone who can't get out of the wheelchair, they wouldn't have been able to use the water and the soap. So I wrote back and forth several times to the Disability New Hampshire, and this woman was very nice and she checked it out in person. But then she wrote me this long letter about the difference between ADA standards and actual useful standards and stuff like that. But she talked about the sink, and over she talked about aspects of the sink, but the part that I kept telling her was that it didn't have a slope in the front, so that if you're in a wheelchair, you know, your elbows, that you can get into the sink because it has a downgrade. And I wish the gentleman who is a member of the committee who uses a wheelchair full-time were here, but he's not. Is anyone else a full-time wheelchair user here?
No.
No? Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay,
Do you have, ask her about the photos.
the photo, oh yeah, I don't know how I can show it. How about I just send it to you all later or something like that? But anyhow, she just didn't tune in to that you need the slope, so I was just asking if anyone knew what the rule is about slopes, because I'll back and forth with her one more time.
Yeah, anyone online want to be on the mental health subcommittee?
Yeah, me.
Who?
Lori. Yeah.
Lori?
Yeah, but this isn't mental health, this is like wheelchair access. Okay, so if no one knows, thank you. Okay, that's the end of my my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. I look forward to seeing what it looks like. And you asked a question on my computer trying to read on the Wi-Fi. It is 9 o'clock and you have to give the building back. Any last comments, questions, concern? Okay. All right, I'm gonna motion that we adjourn.
Holly,
Yes?
did you want to let people know about that gender equities and vulnerable population meeting? There's 3 orders. I sent you the agenda. for the 19th. It's a meeting for the 19th and it's has, you know, 3 orders related to the work you all do.
Thank you. I'm sure that it gets pushed out tomorrow to everyone. It is in person and remote. You can catch it on Zoom. And also I wanted to remind everyone that the mayor has the all board meetings coming up starting on the 18th. I printed that out. I will send that to everyone. It'd be great if we had someone from the commission present at each of these meetings to see if there are any comments or questions or concerns or feedback that relate to our work. And the variance request with Greenlawn, it got filed without being signed and it was taken back, but I don't know if it was refiled officially yet, Adrian. But even stranger, the GLX was out resurfacing the section that they were applying for a variance for. Just they're doing some construction one day. So I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I'll follow up with you, Adrian, and we might have to call the rest board to find out. Okay, so as of 9:02, did I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
And all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Got it. We are adjourned.
Woohoo.
Thank you
Later.
all.